Hey guys, it's Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher. Coming on a little bit late. We had a little bit of a glitch as we were trying to connect, and so I apologize for that. Hopefully this will work. My little iMac that I have here is just about the end of its life. I've recently purchased a MacBook Pro, but I have not had a chance to switch everything over. There's a lot involved with running these videos. Hopefully we're not going to crash. I do see that we're at a stage now where we're kind of, this whole process of these live Q&As has grown and grown, and there's more demand and there's more people. And now that I've switched over as well to a little bit better quality of screen, of video technology, it's also taking up more space on my little computer. So it looks like people are connecting in, which is great. So we've got Jagmeet who's here, Sabia right here. We have Ralph who's also joining in. So that's awesome that you guys are all connecting in. So it's great to have you. You're probably, Igor says, yes, we're back. Yes, hopefully it still works. But next week, or I should say on Thursday, I'm going to have a new system, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. Now, what have I been doing? I'm back in the office today. I actually took yesterday off. I was pretty excited about that, and I'll slide over here a little bit in my chair. I was pretty excited about that because I had an opportunity to do this. Let's see if I can share my screen with you, what I was doing. We're going to remove Igor here, and I'm going to pop up this image right here, if it will let me. Yes. So this is what I was doing yesterday up in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains up above my home, out with my faithful steed Joe, who has been a little bit injured the last little bit, but he did pretty good this last trek up to the top of the mountains, and it was a wonderful, wonderful trip. You need those days to refresh and recharge. And as you guys probably know, you can see here, I've been sitting behind my desk, just putting on weight, eating, and just working with all of you all day. And even Mark needs to have a little bit of time off and to try to get some balance. I'm excited to indicate that I'm also adding another lawyer to Holthe Immigration Law, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be great to have her joining the team. She has actually a couple more years even experience than I have practicing immigration. And so it's fantastic to have some very, very senior experienced immigration lawyers joining the fold. So today, what are we talking about today? Those of you who are jumping in and posting comments, they're going fast and furious. People are already posting basically the questions that they'd like me to respond to, and absolutely I'm going to do that. I'm going to ask you to hold off for just a little bit. We'll give a few shout outs to a few additional people here who are jumping in. It's kind of funny as I'm talking to catch up to those. Let's see here what we've got. Let me go up to the top. I think we can actually give shouts out to people. There's a bunch of people that have tuned in. And once again, I want to apologize for being a little bit late getting to this. Let's see, we've got Adrene. And make sure you tell me where you guys are tuning in from. It's good to see you, Emmett. And let's keep all of this moving forward. All right. Okay, let's see. We've got Naveen who's over in the Punjab. We've got Karen who's over in Delhi. Great to have you joining us. We've got Samaya in Morocco. I'm just randomly giving shout outs here to people. And we've got Batatunda who's over in Edinburgh. Good to have you joining us. We've got a little bit of representation from all over. Shawshank's down in Texas. I hope you're safe down there and the crazy things that are happening in the US. Marlon, big shout out to you. Good to have you connecting with me. And let's see who else we have here. Okay, Igor says there's a little humming noise in the background. I wonder what that is. That's a good question. Let's just back off here and let's see if we can sort it out. I'm not sure what that would be, Igor. Maybe the mic is a little bit too loud. Let's turn it down just a little bit here and see if that helps. And we'll turn that down a little bit. How does that sound, Igor? Is that a little bit better? I'm going to go right to the bottom and you guys can let me. How is the sound, everybody? Is it okay? There's a little bit of an indication that there's some humming or something in the background, so I definitely don't want that. With everything that I've got going on here, see if that's any better. All right. Okay, Igor just said sound is better. Okay, good. This is how we do this here, guys. All right, great. Viral says, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so big shout out, Andy. And we've got a Facebook user in Kurdistan. Thanks, guys. Look, this is awesome. Everybody's like, sound is great. It's fine. Sound is perfect. Okay, good. All right, it is now time. I'm not going to waste any more time. You guys have been so patient. We're running a little bit behind. So I do want to jump in and just talk about a couple things. One is what's happening in the US. And you can see here, one of the things, well, let me start off first with the title of this, which is that the Canadian immigration numbers are slowly increasing in spite of COVID-19. So I think a lot of you know, if I jump over here to sharing my screen with you guys, I think a lot of you guys know that right now, Canada just recently extended another invitation or rounds of invitations to people outside of Canada. 3,900, I think it was, just this past week. So despite many other countries closing things off to foreign nationals, not giving them opportunities to stay, to complete their, well, even to apply to come and immigrate, they're closing things off. Canada is the opposite. Canada is actually continuing to increase. And this article here is just one. This is Radio Canada International. This is just one of the articles that's just confirming the number of, in April, IRCC reported 4,000 new permanent residents. All of that just is an indicator of everything that's transpiring. This was an article that was just released yesterday. It was updated. I'm sure they had to correct a few things in here. But the reality is Canada is continuing to bring people in. And for me as an immigration lawyer, obviously I've got an interest in that, and I'm super excited and grateful that that's the case. But even then, I just look at the long-term planning, the foresight, everything. Many countries tend to be so short-sighted. The moment things kind of turn south, then they close the borders. The reality is, you guys, when you come to Canada, you make a difference. You add to our culture. And I would encourage you guys to go back to my YouTube, the one that I did. If I pull it up here, let's see if I can pull this up. I'd encourage you to go back. This is really my feelings on all of this. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to go back to my channel here. This is all kind of random, spontaneous, but you'll see right here, this one right here is my top 10 reasons to immigrate to Canada. And I would strongly encourage that you guys go and take a look at this and just listen to the reasons why I believe in not only that, not only articles like this with the numbers increasing, but why Canada is such an awesome place to immigrate to, and why I absolutely love doing what I'm doing. One of the reasons that adds to this is how other countries are treating their international students. So we talked a little bit about this before. Canada has started to process study permit applications again, but the travel restrictions are still an issue, and it's complicated. The government may say, yes, you can board and you can fly, and then you have a Canada Border Service officer on the other side saying, no, you can't enter because the purpose of your entry is it's optional or discretionary. In other words, you have to demonstrate that your entry is non-optional or non-discretionary. All these double negatives. At the end of the day, that it's important for you to be able to come in. And some of the things that they look at as students are if your program of study requires you to be there, to attend in person, that you've got labs, that you've got different practical components to your education that require you to be physically present in Canada. Do you have a place to live? Are you already set up? Were you already in Canada and established, but were trapped outside because of the travel restrictions? So those are just some of the factors that the officers look at. But for all of you who are new students, there are some issues that are at play right now, and there's a lot of flux. We really have more questions than we have answers at this stage. And so I can't really clarify a lot about the future. And even with the international schools that I work with, a lot of them are just wondering, the schools that have international students attending, a lot of them are just as uncertain with what the government is doing as us lawyers are. And so when you look at the U.S. here, you can see as the U.S. turns hostile, foreign student permits climb in Canada. So this is where I'm going to make a commitment to you guys. For a long time on my Canadian Immigration Institute site, I have had just 2 courses. And the 2 courses that I have right here, one is Express Entry, which so many people purchase and use and benefit from. but one that I have meant to put on, and the other is for labor market impact assessments for employers who want to hire you guys and don't know what the process is. Sure, they could hire me as a lawyer. I charge $3,000 to do that, or they can go in here and they can actually purchase a subscription to this course that teaches them how to do it. And I just don't market this like I should. I really should do a better job. But the reality is these are the two courses that I have. But after seeing articles like this and seeing so many people who are now realizing the US is not the best bet for studies, Canada is the route to go. You can see here, Canada, obviously our foreign student permits are climbing in Canada, which is attested to even by this US news report. And the reality is, when we're looking at right now, 642,000 foreign students in Canada at the end of last year. There are large numbers. But guys, guess where the most, when it comes to studying, many of our people that transition into permanent residence in Canada have got their start by attending school in Canada. And it makes total sense why the government would give special treatment to them. And when you think about when you think about it, you have international students that come, they study in Canada, they get a Canadian education. They're kind of, they get accustomed to the Canadian work environment. They're in a far greater position to be able to transition into jobs than someone who is coming in without any connection to Canada. Now, there's a very, very important reason why Canada continues to allow international applicants to the federal skilled worker program to come through. You play a critical role in the future, your education, your experience, all of the things that the skills and attributes and human capital, you bring it to Canada for the benefit of Canada. The international students, they in many respects are kind of like new Canadian students getting out of school and taking positions. So there's a critical need for both. But now Canada really, I'll be honest, is absolutely a new destination for international students. Now that the US is just doing crazy things, like telling students they have to leave. That's one report that we had. I'm not sure if that's fully substantiated, but there was a report that they intended to tell international students that they had to leave the US if their programs were going online, entirely online. And so I'm sure there's ways around that, but just that mentality, what does that tell you as an international student? It tells you that, well, we don't really think you're important. But Canada is different. And once again, that's why I'm so grateful to be doing what I do. Okay, with that being said, back to this discussion here, guys. I'm committed. Tomorrow I have blocked off in my calendar. I have this study permit course that I'd spent so much time on just that I could not finish because on Friday I did 8 consults with people before 1 p.m. So that was on Friday. So obviously that's where my passion is. That's what I love to do. But I've carved out time on Wednesday tomorrow, and I'm going to finish this course. So it's going to go live on Thursday. Come, I don't know what, heck or high water, it will be live. And it will be here on the Canadian Immigration Institute website for you to purchase. And this course will help you to understand the best things to do to increase your chances of getting your study permit approved. Now, one thing for sure, you cannot change your own circumstances. You can't change whether your age, you cannot change any gap that you may have in studies. You can't change the programs that you're looking to go to. All of those things are factors that you can't control. You can't control the country you're coming from. And every single one of those impact on your ability to get the study permit. But this will be discussed in the course. And it is. At this stage, I've already discussed a lot of these things. But this course is going to get launched. And I'm going to encourage you to go over to the Facebook page. And I want to also want to tell you guys who are watching this on Facebook, if I go to, I have a separate course right here that's called Study Permit Law course. Boy, I'm talking faster than I'm thinking here. A private Facebook group called Study Permit Law. And in here, you can get access to lots of information, announcements I post in here, questions that people have. This is the place that you can go. At this stage, I haven't restricted anyone from coming into here. So you can see there's advertisements from other people I haven't blocked yet. But those of you who are coming in that have questions about studying, this is where I want you to go, to the Study Permit Law. All right. So Thursday, I'm going to have this course launched, and it's going to be an evolving course. But the most important critical aspects of it, I'm going to create tomorrow. I'm going to find a way to get her done. All right. So there we go. I'm going to stop there because Because otherwise I could be talking forever and ever. Let's now shift back, and I want to answer you guys' question. So we're going to shift back here. I'm going to close out of here, and now we're going to get to all of the listener questions. Thank you so much for being so patient, everyone. All right, now I also want to point out that it's important that your questions be related to something that individuals in the group can benefit from. If it's a specific question, you hear that bell and it says that is legal advice. And if you're in a situation where where you're asking something specific about your unique situation, then this little disclaimer that's rolling across the bottom, that's going to tell you that that's legal advice and that's something that I'm not able to give when I'm doing these videos. General questions, absolutely, we will touch on those. Okay, so let's go through. I'm going to jump back and I'm going to start to answer some of your questions. Like I said, any of you, if there is anyone that was on Facebook, and it looks like Facebook hasn't yet blocked, and it's interesting, I'll share something else while everybody is kind of watching here. Over the last little bit, the Facebook feed, they've said that there's some proprietary or some infringement of privacy or I don't even know what it was, but Facebook decided that they needed to block what I was doing here. And the only thing I can think of, because I've done this for like 4 years, is that some haters out there are just not liking what I'm doing, or, I don't know. I don't know why people do what they do, but they probably notified Facebook and said there was something confidential or private on here. But that's fine. At the end of the day, haters will be haters, but it's not going to stop me from doing what I do. So if you have any trouble in the future with Facebook, always go over to YouTube and you'll be able to watch the videos live there, or even Periscope. All right. So I just want to let everybody know about that. Yes, it sucks, doesn't it? When you start to do good, sometimes there's just people that have nothing better to do than to try to make things difficult. And I'm not going to say who they may or may not be, probably competitors. Doubtful it would be a lawyer who's doing that, because they don't really care what I do. But there's probably other competitors out there on the consultant side that are just ticked because I'm, not always kind to them. Okay, moving on. All right. Okay, there's some general questions here. Amadou, tuned in from Iran. Do I have a chance to get invited with a 475? Maybe. Simple as that. You may very well have the opportunity to do that. And I'm going to just shift over here in my screen so that it's a little bit easier to show the questions that are being asked. Okay, let's scroll down here. Okay, let's see. We got Ryan who's tuning in from Arkansas. Great to have you, Ryan. I don't know what your status is in the US, but I feel for you guys. H-1Bs, the options are almost negligent. Now that they've undercut the students, boy, seriously, come to Canada. Okay, Sahil says, Mark, hello to you again. Your FSW prediction was correct. It was, but you know what, guys? Like, it's just guessing. We don't know exactly when things are happening. And you'll remember last week I said that it was coming, the FSW draws, but I had no idea that they were going to release it on the Thursday. I should say the very next day, on the Wednesday. I thought it would be the next week. So I'm just guessing, just like you guys. Although I do have, obviously, my opportunities to speak with the officers, but they don't release things like that to us, just like any representative. That information as to when the draws are, what the pass mark's going to be, all those things, those are confidential and they're not released to anyone. So if someone thinks they know, don't trust them. All right. Okay, Ansh, good to have you joining here. Let's go down here. Okay, let's see what Sarfraz says. Hi, Mark, is there any chance of international borders opening if the Canada-US border restrictions are extended? That's a good question. And I don't make policy. I'm not the one who's making decisions on when we should open the borders and when not. The reality is the U.S. is one of our major trading partners. In fact, they are our largest major trading partner. Our food supply, and to a large extent, that food security relies on the importation of food from the U.S. And so there's some political reasons, there's some economic reasons that don't even relate to health, why Canada and the U.S.'s border is still, more flexible in terms of entry than all the other countries, especially countries that are really doing a good job at managing COVID, because the U.S. right now is doing a crappy job. And we're seeing, something just really broke my heart talking to my mother. I went to visit her, and my mother, she's 76. I went to visit her and we talked about some of her friends. She used to go down to Arizona and visit and stay for a few months down there during the summers. And so she built lots of friends and relationships with friends down there. And she just told me that, that some of her friends had recently passed away. Well, in fact, one of her friends had passed away, a husband, and then 1 week later, his wife also contracted COVID, and she passed away. And her son, who was caring for her, also got COVID. And her son is probably in his, late 40s, 50s himself. And so this family is just decimated. And it's happening a lot to those who are the most vulnerable in society. And I can just never figure out why people, I don't want to be too overly harsh on the US, but sometimes I just question why they just haven't been more careful. And in Canada, we make our own mistakes, right? And we're taking every step possible, including the reason we have the travel restrictions to limit the potential of the coronavirus being brought in by a new carrier. But we are taking a lot of care in what we're doing to try to limit the spread. And because of that, we've been able to flatten the curve. And so I look at you people in the US, it's really, really hard being down there. And, right now, when it comes to other countries, we just don't know what's going to happen. We know that the travel restrictions are enforced until the end of July. We know that our the quarantine requirements are extending through to August, and I'm sure even longer. And they're actually tightening up the Canada border. We've got companies who've been sending people in, and now because of some situations where some of the individuals coming in that haven't quarantined because they've been coming in for an essential purpose, have created a spread of infection in Canada. Now they're starting to clamp down and make it even more difficult. So companies can't just send an after-sales service person in. It's without having them go through the quarantine requirements of at least 14 days. And those are the steps that Canada is taking, and it's hurting business. It really is. But we're taking the position that we would rather hurt business than to cause deaths needlessly. And it's a balance. It really is. And so that's the difference. So yeah, long story, long answer to your question, Sarfraz, but we just don't know. I would personally like to see the ability for us to open the borders to countries that are doing a good job, where the cases are low, where the risk of someone coming with the virus is low. But you still have to, if there's direct flights from one location to Canada, maybe that's safer, but that's a whole different discussion. Okay, good question. All right, let's jump down here through some more. Wow, and if I don't get to your question, I recognize your comments. Everybody's shouting out where they're from, like Olu, Nigeria. I do want you guys, if I could sit here and just give everybody shouts out like Adrian, South Africa, I would do that. But unfortunately, it would take up the whole feed, and I really want this to be as valuable as possible. So thanks for posting. The people that are out there can see your posting, and you bet. It's good to see all of you guys here. Okay, let's go through here. Okay, so here's a question. I'll pull up Katarina. So this is a big one here, okay? And Katarina has asked some questions before. She says, I noticed that there's an exemption for biometrics for inland temporary resident applications on IRCC website. Do we need to do anything additionally, or just wait for IRCC to do their thing? Thank you. That's exactly it. You just have to wait for instructions. I had a biometric request that came in for a client that was for the wrong citizenship. I think they had Antigua Barbuda, that was the citizenship on the biometrics, when it should have been Syria. And so I sent a case-specific inquiry, and I said, well, what do you want me to do with this? Wow, this is like taking over the whole screen here. Let me just close that out. I said, well, what do you want me to do here? Because everything should be in the citizenship of the passport that we've included with everything, which is Syria. And they said, oh, no, just go ahead and, just do it. Well, the biometric office wasn't open, and so we waited. And then lo and behold, like last week, I got another biometric letter that had been switched over with Syria as the nationality. And so then they said, go and get your biometrics done. So immigration is not perfect. They're scrambling. They're trying to figure things out. So when it comes to biometrics, the offices in Canada, we're anxiously awaiting instruction as to when those will open. But like I said, Canada's taking the whole social distancing very seriously. And even home, excuse me, even here in my own city of Lethbridge, we're now starting to get a few cases here where we had been really, really sheltered before. And so because of those numbers, like even I look at our church, we have made a decision to not meet at all. And just out of, concern about spreading. And the last thing in the world we want to be is creating a situation where it's making it just possible for the virus to spread. So, wow, this is dominating a lot of the conversation, isn't it? Okay, let's go through here. Let's see. We've got Mark's in Ghana and Jasmeet is over in India. Good to have you here. Okay, Heba says, is PNP still open for any province? Yes. Short answer is yes. Other provinces like Alberta are making decisions to restrict the numbers, but they're still open. Okay, scrolling through here. Okay, so Raul says, he says, hey, tuning in from India, got my ITA on the 9th, CRA scar 480. Woo! Awesome, Raul. That's so awesome. He says, got many valuable inputs from this channel. Thank you for sharing valuable information through your videos. Raul, my pleasure. This is why I do what I do. This is why it's so important. This is actually, I'm going to maybe make this a little bit smaller. It's taken over the world, and I think you guys can see this stuff here. So there we go. So thanks, Raul. I appreciate that. That's what gives me the motivation to keep doing this. If I feel like it's actually making a difference in people's lives, then that's where the motivation is. Okay, let's keep going here. Okay, Sabia asks a great question here. She says, hey, tell us about study permits. Does age matter with 10 to 12 year gap? And if I study one semester in my hometown, can my spouse apply for the work permit? Okay, so guys, understand the key here is that there is no one size fits all. So how an application is adjudicated for an Indian citizen may be completely different for how an application is adjudicated for an American citizen. And so there are these beliefs that just because there are things like gaps or that you're older, that you're never going to get a study permit because of that. Well, that's simply not the case. The reality is, and this is something I'll talk about in my study permit course, is that it depends on the country that you're in. And Canada, for a while there, was very, I'll never use the term racist because there are reasons why they do things, but there are definitely a different standard of processing for some continents over in others. And so Africa, for instance, there was a high rate of refusal. Whereas if you compared the same amount from Australia, they just wouldn't compare. So there's a lot of different factors at play, and I'll talk about more of that in the study permit course. Okay, but good question. So depending on what country you're coming from, Sabia, it could play a role. So for example, if you're coming from India or Pakistan and you have been out of school, you're over 30 years old, you know, then the older you get, the further away you are to your undergraduate if you're taking a master's, or completing your high school if you're coming to take an undergrad program. The further distance in between, the harder it is. But it all comes down to your education plan. Okay, let's move on here a little bit more. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Ranjit's talking about LMIAs. So he says, my question regarding LMIAs, are they processing LMIAs for supporting PR within Canada? And if yes, then how many days or weeks they are taking? Okay, so this is a great question. So what Ranjit is asking, some companies are able to obtain a labor market impact assessment. It's called a permanent one that is used to support, in this case, Ranjit, for instance, his extra 50 points or 200 points for a job offer within Express Entry. And so at no stage have they indicated that they've stopped processing those applications. But what's happened is they have dedicated the limited staff that they have to prioritizing certain types of LMIA applications over others. Now remember, because of social distancing in Canada, many of those officers all worked in close cubicles, close together in small offices. And so when you're processing applications right next to someone else, and they're all by and large paper-based applications, which are LMIAs, although they are starting to pioneer and to push forward the electronic process for filing LMIAs, a lot of them come in via fax, they come in via courier, and they're paper-based. And for a lot of the government departments, paper-based applications have basically gone nowhere. They have been sitting there. They have, because of the, immigration, I should say even the immigration department, ESDC that manages the foreign worker program, all of those, when the outbreak happened, they went out of their way to make sure that the staff were protected, especially government employees. And so a lot of those applications, like these LMIAs that you're talking about, Ranjit, have just been stalled out, not going anywhere. LMIAs that are for agriculture, supporting the food chain, the fight against COVID-19, healthcare, those types of LMIAs they've been giving priority to. And so the limited staff that they do have, at these offices have been processing those types of applications. So that's what's happening. As far as how long it takes to process an application, good luck. You know, who knows where we're at with processing, but I have to assume that it's not going to be anytime soon. Okay, good question. Okay. Okay, Sabia, okay, once again, does study permit lead to PR? Not directly. You have to gain Canadian work experience. Well, I shouldn't say not directly. It depends on the program. There's a whole bunch of them, a whole bunch of different ones. PNP programs, you know, there's a bunch of different categories that may potentially lead to permanent residence. However, in most cases, you have to study, then work, then transition to PR. And ironically, that is something else that I will cover in the study permit course. Okay. Okay, so this one here. Okay. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to show you Naveen, and I'm going to just hit this one right here. So Naveen, this one, generally there are some things that I could do to answer your question. He says, I'm claiming 3 years paid, but I was paid by cash. You'll be getting checks from this month. Should he deposit the checks to get the deposited account before AOR as proof of payment? So Naveen, this is something that definitely would fall under specific legal advice. And the reason is because you're asking questions about your unique situation. And I don't want to answer that because there's way more information that I would need in order to be able to give you the proper legal advice. So that question, unfortunately, Naveen, is one. And I use it as an example for everybody that's tuning in here, where you would need to go and you need to actually book a consultation, and where we can go through and we can talk about everything in the time that we need to do that. Just for those of you who are new here, and I never do a good enough job at posting this, in the description there'll be a link where you can click on to book a consult. But generally speaking, you're going to go to my firm website, and then when you're here, you're going to click on Start Here, fill out this questionnaire, and then it will allow you to book a consult. The consults are $210 Canadian for a 25-minute consult. But as I always say, don't be deceived. You send the information in advance, I look at it, I come ready to answer your questions. And there's a lot I can answer in 25 minutes, as you can see from this hour-long Q&A that I do. Okay, so that's what I'd recommend that you do. All right, jumping back here. Okay, let's see what we have next. I'm going to jump through a bunch here so we can get to some other people. Okay, this is one I get a lot of. This is from Diego. He says, wow, thanks for what you're doing. I'm curious, after 6 months, I've not received an answer on my EE application. Do you recommend filling the web form asking for information? No, I do not recommend it. Everybody's application is stalled out. 7, 8 months, even 9 months past the processing. Probably, in my mind, I would have to assume that even there, you're stuck with everybody else, especially if you're outside of Canada. If you're inside Canada, then maybe you could, after 6 months, make an inquiry. But the reality is all processing has been extended. So anyone wondering where their application is at, I find that it's actually a waste to do that. It adds extra burden on the government when the reality is they will process your application as soon as they process it. The only time I go through the process of requesting a web form is, and even then I really don't. For me, it's more I will request the GCMS notes, because if an application is stalled out for a longer period of time, that usually means that they're looking at something. And there's some further review that's required. And in those circumstances, it's really helpful. And I just did this. I had a consult with a client just last week where we went back and realized there were problems with his work history. So we quickly fixed his reference letters. We pulled in and understand. He came to me after he submitted his own, but we went back, got further strengthened reference letters and everything, and we uploaded all of those through a web form to give his application the best chance of success, because we knew it had been stalled out. And that's typically what I do with GCMS notes. But with web form, what's the status of it? Right now, I really don't go out of my way to submit those, because I know personally that the government is doing the best they can. And if your application is languishing, especially express entry, and it's just at 6 months and a few days, I would not even consider submitting it until probably 9 months, unless there was some other reason to inquire. All right? Okay. Good question there, Diego. Thank you. Okay, we've got Delphin, who's an avid fan from Toronto. Thank you. I didn't know I had fans. That's hilarious. But understand, I know what you mean by that. And basically what that means is you're someone who has valued what I'm doing and you've benefited from it and you're appreciative of it. And although fan makes me feel a little uncomfortable, the reality is if it's a benefit to people, that is why I do this. And all I can say is thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. Let's keep cruising through here. Okay, and if you've got a long question, usually that's kind of an indication that it's going to be more specific, so I tend to bypass those. Okay, Mahana says here, migration increase or decrease? Well, we just talked about it right from the beginning, and maybe you're a little bit late jumping on, but if we go right here, you can see Canada's immigration numbers are slowly increasing. And that's the basis of this whole introductory portion of the video today. So you have to go back and watch it as a video because Canada is continuing to move forward. Okay. Yes. Shabana says, hey, the citizenship oath, when will it happen again? Understand, guys, until the social distancing is dispersed and people can gather again in large groups, they're not going to do the in-person oaths. Now, like PR, where you used to have to do a landing in person, for those in Canada, they've been sending out letters saying, voila, you're a permanent resident. So we expect that's the direction they're going to go with citizenship oaths, that it's going to be some form of process like that or a virtual one. But the reality is, going through this process, they're working on it. They recognize it, and they don't want this massive backlog of citizenship applications that are all waiting the oath ceremony. They don't want to create these massive backlogs. They want to try to move things forward. So I know they're working on it, but we haven't received any notification yet. Okay, we've got about 5 more minutes here. Let's jump through here. Okay, hello Mark, can IRCC stop conducting FSW draws? Well, they already did. So yeah, US border closure has been extended. It's been extended because of the insanity that's happening in the US. But when it comes to processing FSW applications, those are going to continue going forward. They've started them, and I have, at this stage, I don't envision that they're going to stop doing them. Maybe they'll throw in a CEC draw, which many CEC candidates that I have in Canada that are clients would be delighted to see. But the FSW, they have the ability to suspend them. They do. We've seen it. Will they do it again? It's hard to tell. But at this stage, many countries are getting COVID under control. But the reality is, until our official travel restrictions are lifted, there's not going to be a pathway for many people to actually land. So that is one of the reasons why they delayed. But they've made the decision to extend another 3,900 ITAs. So that's a pretty strong indication to me that that it's unlikely that they're going to close stop the FSW draws right after starting them. All right. Okay, let's see else what we have here. Okay, so Marlon says, any future on work permit LMIA, okay, had been laid off. Are they allowed to apply for other jobs available or maybe get a part-time job while out of work? Marlon, I understand your situation here. Unless your new employer has an LMIA, they're not going to let you just switch over to a new employer if your work permit lists a current one. Now, they are expediting those work permits. So if you have an employer who is able to get an LMIA, which of course is also very difficult, they will expedite the processing of the work permit within as little as a week. So they do prioritize people moving from jobs to others, but your new employer still needs to have an LMIA or a way to bring you on. Okay, good question. Okay, here's a good one. Dania asks, any chance of rejection? And I just did a review today. Well, it was a spousal after the fact review with some awesome clients, which I'm doing more and more of these for people who've applied and listed their spouse as non-accompanying and then applied to bring them after. In this case, my client actually got married after he became a permanent resident. But the question Dania is asking here is, if you get married after you've submitted your EAPR, will it affect your application and how long will it delay it? So you're totally within your right to get married after you submit your EAPR and then update the system. I tell my clients, at least before all of this craziness hit, that 6 months you can pretty much add on to add a spouse. And that pretty much was the standard. Now, maybe 7, 8 months if you're outside of Canada, which of course you are usually when you get married, it could be even longer. So it is a long, long process. One thing you never want to do is to get married and then have that person go through and finalize their application without disclosing you. In those circumstances, they could be barred forever from sponsoring you through this this cruel regulation in the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations, 117.9D, which us lawyers talk about, which basically says if your spouse wasn't examined before you landed, then you're barred from sponsoring them. Okay, if you need any help with that, Dania, please reach out. And any of you out there, I know you've got tons of questions and you just need them answered. You probably have more things that I could teach you or help you with than you even think about in the course of the consult. Often people will ask me questions and I'll definitely go through and answer all the questions, but then the questions that they ask cause me to think of some other things that you really need to understand and know, and then I take the time to teach you about those as well. So it's interesting, that's why the consults are so important, and that's why working in a situation where one-to-one I can ask the questions I need and to get the clarification, because often you come away with more information than you even intended to get in the first place. All right, awesome. Amadou, my friend, I'm going to end with you. Thank you, Amadou, and thank everybody else who joined me today. It was a little bit shortened because I had problems with my computer. I'm going to switch it over. We're going to have a good discussion on Thursday. One of the things that we're going to talk about on Thursday is Canada isn't always the perfect fit for everyone. And I'm going to pull up an article that just came regarding a Nigerian citizen who's had a real hard time in the Yukon. Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's the Northwest Territories, but he's up in the north anyways. And he'd been in Canada for over 10 years, and in the end, it didn't work out. There were some reasons that it didn't work out that are not readily apparent in the article, but I want to talk about those at the beginning of next article. And Canada may not be the place for everyone, and it's important to understand that. But also, it's also important to understand that if you make mistakes along the way, there's no forgiveness. And it doesn't matter whether you're inside Canada and you're already a student transitioning to a work permit. If you make mistakes in that process, it could totally destroy your ability to stay. Also with work permits, choosing the wrong employer, choosing the wrong level of work, not knowing, burning up your postgrad, and then being in a situation where you no longer have the ability to apply through express entry, that can wreck it. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of people who really want to give helpful information, but may or may not understand that the advice they're giving doesn't apply to you. And they may think it's general for everyone, and then it causes harm. So I want to, I want to just let you know how important it is that that you get the proper advice that you need throughout the whole process. And it doesn't matter what immigration says and how easy it is they make it appear. It is completely fraught with pitfalls, with minefields, with places that you can get tripped up. And just because someone has gone through the process and submitted their own application doesn't mean that they know how best to advise you. And that is where immigration lawyers fit into the equation. That's why the consultation is so important. That's why I'm not able to answer everybody's individual questions when they post them here, because I just don't have the facts to give proper advice. But the general questions, I will give and give and give and give till my voice goes dry, till my time runs out. I've got another consult in 2 minutes. I better jump over to them. But thank you so much, all of you, for tuning in. I can tell you right now that this is the highlight of my Tuesdays and Thursdays. I actually intend to ramp it up. I've got a whole series of tips on immigration that I call wild tips on immigration. And those wild tips are formulated to a large extent by this kind of thing. When I go back into the mountains, I get my phone right here and I record a tip. And I'm going to create those videos and get those posted that are short little ones. I've been building them up as I've gone into the mountains and the wild of Canada. So watch for those on the YouTube channel. But thanks so much, everybody. I want to wish you all the best. Come back on Thursday, and I hope to see you then. Take care, everyone. This is Mark Holthe, immigration lawyer. I'm not a consultant, no. And no, I don't need an RCIC number to do what I do, which was one of the potential clients had sent an email asking for my RCIC number. I have the ability to represent people related to any immigration matter, any legal matter in Canada, including going to federal court. Consultants are authorized by their by the government. Like someone's trying to call in already. They are authorized through their association, but I, as an immigration lawyer, am authorized by the Law Society of Alberta, and that's where all of my authority comes to represent people. So thought I'd just throw that in and clarify it. Anyways, Mark Holt, the immigration lawyer, former immigration officer, and former high school teacher, pulling this all together to offer you guys this Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. Take care. See you again soon. Bye.